Hey lovelies, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's lesson on abstinence. I hope maybe you learned something, or maybe you just reinforced some of the things you already knew. Today we are going to talk about birth control methods. I always tell classes this. So now that we're not in school, there's a lot of time and a lot of opportunity for students to make some interesting choices. Some of you will, when you're choosing classes for at the high school, you may not take health class again until 10th grade. The day I started 10th grade in high school, two of my closest friends were pregnant. So maybe had they had some more of this type of education before then, they may not have been in that position. They may have, but they may not have. So it's my job to give you as much information to keep you as safe as possible between now and the next time you have a health class. One of the things I want to stress to you is that young people should wait to be sexually active until they are mature enough to discuss with their partner how they're going to protect themselves from pregnancy or infection. And if you aren't ready to have a conversation with someone about whether or not you're going to use condoms or what you would do if you got pregnant, then you probably shouldn't be having sex with them. A couple years ago, I was teaching this unit and a girl was like, "I can't talk about that. That's gross." Oh, but you're going to have sex with that person? If you can't have the conversation, don't have sex with them. It's also important that you should wait to have sex until you are ready to deal with any potential outcomes, whether it be pregnancy or disease, and some of the emotional consequences that can go along with being sexually active as well. So please make sure you're making good choices. And if your good choice in your time in life is to be sexually active, please take steps to keep yourself safe and to keep the other person safe as well. Birth control methods, spring 2020. As you can see in our picture, there are a lot of different birth control methods. Some you've heard of before and some you may not have heard of before. Some of the things I want to chat about before we go much further is a thing called surgical sterilization. It's on the bottom row all the way to the left. Yep, make the L. That's where it left. There are different parts of the male and the female anatomy that if a person decides they no longer wish to have children, they can have an operation and they will cut. In males, it's the vas deferens, and in females, it's the fallopian tubes. And then they either tie them off or cauterize the ends, which is burning them. So that way, the sperm and the egg cannot meet. Surgical sterilization, no longer able to have kids. Those are effective like 98% of the time. However, there are stories of people who the male had a vasectomy and they still got pregnant. There are stories of people who have a tubal ligation who still get pregnant. The tubal ligation is the fallopian tube thing. It's not 100%, but it is pretty high for not getting pregnant again. A lot of men will go through the process of getting a vasectomy once they have decided that they are no longer going to have children. Both can be surgically reversed so that they can have children again. It's just not guaranteed to, and there tends to be scar tissue that shows up that's not as good for those things as well. The next thing I want to chat about for just a moment is something known as the calendar rhythm method. The calendar rhythm method is essentially for a female who is really in tune with her body, and she can tell, or she's found a way to tell through different mechanisms, when she's ovulating. So that way she may choose not to have sexual intercourse during that time, or if she's trying to get pregnant, she may choose to have sexual intercourse at that time. So when we did the menstrual cycle stuff, we found that ovulation typically occurs in the middle of the cycle, normally around day 14 or 15. And so a woman might track things like her basal temperature, her internal temperature. She may track her vaginal discharge. She may check for cramping or sensitivities in her breasts or other places of her body and know when it is time for her to ovulate. And kind of like that calendar shows, like the days she's ovulating are no-go days for her, or opposite, whatever. Next to that one to the left is called coitus interruptus. Coitus interruptus is the single dumbest, least likely to be effective for young people method of birth control. It is also known as the pull-out method. The idea is that when a male and female are having intercourse, a male can tell when he is about to ejaculate, and instead of ejaculating inside of a female, he would pull out and then choose to ejaculate somewhere else. A friend of mine, that's how she got pregnant when she was 15, because her boyfriend told her over and over, no, I got this, no, I got this. And apparently he did not, because she was pregnant and had a baby 9 months later. So please, please, please make smarter choices than using the pull-out method, especially as young people, because young people tend to have less control over those bodily functions. The rest of these things we will talk about in just a moment. There are 2 types of birth control methods. The first one is called hormonal methods. These prevent eggs from being released from the ovaries. They thicken the cervical mucus, which is mucus or liquid that are a discharge from the cervix, which is the base of the uterus, to prevent sperm from being able to enter the uterus, and it thins the lining of the uterus to lower the chances of there being implantation. Typical hormonal birth control that you've probably heard of include birth control pills. Some contain estrogen, some contain progesterone, and some contain both. Other types of hormonal birth control include a patch, kind of like a nicotine patch, or where it just goes in the skin and it releases hormone in. A ring, which is a silicone ring that has hormone in it that is female will insert into her vagina, and that will release hormone throughout a certain time frame. An IUD is an intrauterine device that is put into the uterus by a doctor, and it releases hormone, and it prevents an egg from being implanted into the uterus. An implant is something that typically goes into the arm of an individual. It is about the size of a Tic Tac, and it releases hormone into the body over an extended period of time. And the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth one, is hormonal shots, where you would go into a doctor and get an injection, and that would keep hormones at a certain level to hopefully prevent pregnancy for some period of time. It's important to know that hormonal birth control methods can also be used to regulate periods and to make them less severe. So if someone, when they get their period, their cramps are so bad that they can't get out of bed for 3 days, they may choose to take hormonal methods of birth control to try to make those cramps less severe. Also, most women will regulate or have a similar cycle every month, every 28 days after they're a little bit older, but some women don't regulate, so they may use hormonal methods of birth control to do that as well. As you can see on this image, which I will be posting in Schoology as well, all of those things exist. I always get kids that scrunch their faces at the vaginal ring. Obviously, the vaginal ring requires you being comfortable with your own body. If that's something that someone's not comfortable with, then the ring is hopefully not something they will choose, because if you're not likely to use it or comfortable using it, you're probably not going to use it correctly. The other method of birth control that we will chat about is called the barrier method. If we were in class, I would have asked you before we got to this slide, what's a barrier? And you would have told me something that prevents you from getting somewhere. Ding, ding, ding. The barrier method of birth control prevents an egg from reaching a sperm. So some of those examples include a diaphragm, a cervical cap, a male condom, a female condom, spermicidal foams, sponges, and films. A lot of you have probably heard of a male condom, and that's pretty standard when it comes to pregnancy prevention or birth control methods. Some of you may have heard of a female condom, which, if you can see it in the picture, is the long plastic wrap looking one. It is not plastic wrap, but it works by being inserted into the female, and then it puts a barrier. All of those, spermicidal means that it kills the sperm. So foams, sponges, and films would be something that they put in or put on the diaphragm or the cervical cap that then is inserted into the vagina and will kill the sperm when coming to contact with them. As you can see from these images, if a female is choosing to use a female condom, a diaphragm, or a cervical cap, again, they need to be comfortable with their body and being able to insert something into their body. Those things have to be inserted before sexual intercourse is to take place. So that's something that a female may have to consider as well when choosing different kinds of birth control. This is just the effectiveness of some of these things. Again, I'll be posting this in Schoology along with the videos, so that way you can have both pieces of information. When it comes to birth control methods, most of them do not protect you from STIs, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Sexually transmitted infections. Condoms can, and we'll talk about how and where and what tomorrow. If you have questions on any of the things we talked about today and you would like to ask them one-on-one in a Schoology message, if you would like to ask them on the puberty Google form, whatever that is, if you have questions, please ask me. That's why I'm here, to answer your questions. And the lucky part for you is that you don't have to do it face-to-face. I've had kids ask really seemingly embarrassing questions right to my face, and I was really proud of them. But you guys don't have to do that. You can be anonymous. You can bribe your friend to ask me. That always happens in class. But please ask questions if you have them. I'm here for you.